Hi, everyone. Charlotte here for a recorded guided lesson. Maybe you're just at home hanging out. Maybe you didn't go to Sunday school today and they're meeting without you, but you still want to engage with what's going on. You can listen to these at any time. All of the recorded lessons are on the Holy Comforter website. So it's the beginning of the year. If you're watching this in September, and maybe you've met once in a group, maybe this is your first Sunday school of the year, and it's going to be different and weird and fun, and we're going to do it pretty much this way for 2 months and then see what happens, and you get to be a part of that with us, and we're very excited to be able to still have Sunday school. Yay. A special thing about this year for junior high is that you are likely going to be confirmed either this year or next. And confirmation in the Episcopal Church is an introduction to what it means to be an adult in the church. And a lot of people think, oh, that means I get to make my own decisions, or I get to decide whether I want to go to church. No, your parents still get to decide all of that. But what it means is now what we give you in Sunday school about being an Episcopalian, about being a Christian, about what we know about God, about other religions and other practices that follow God, you get to decide now what to do with that. When you're little, you hear stories and you breathe in the stories and you think about the stories, and maybe you're not old enough to do more than that, but now you are. You get to make decisions about what you believe and what you don't. Ask questions about where things came from, why we do certain things. These are all things that a younger child in the church doesn't have curiosity about, even if we were to tell them. And sometimes it'll mean going back to questions maybe that you had figured out already, things that you feel like they're basic parts of the church that you never understood or learned, or you want to relearn them as an older individual. And one of those themes is prayer. Prayer is one of those things that we do all the time in the church. We do it together, we do it by ourselves. Maybe you grew up doing it before bed or at a meal time, like a grace. But very rarely does someone tell you what it is or why you're doing it. And maybe now you are old enough to be like, what's the deal with this prayer stuff? And how is it different from throwing a coin in a wishing well? The answer is it's very different. So let's talk about it. Or rather, I'm going to talk in this short recorded session. You can pause whenever you want it. Chat with your friends, chat with your family. Talk with everyone around you about it if you're in a group. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. Sharesies. There we are. Okay. Prayer. It's loading. What, why, where, and how. These aren't the 5 W's, but they are the W's that I care about. How is actually not with a W, so ignore that. What is prayer? Why do we do it? Where do we do it? And how? So prayer, this is just a definition. Before I really get into that, I just want to say that prayer is one of these things that we do all the time. And yet we may not be actually using it to the best of its ability. Because when we pray, we are essentially talking and listening, having a conversation with the thing that created the whole universe. Me, tiny little pinprick on the earth, trying to communicate with an enormous, incomprehensible, wild, loving entity that's in all living things. And you may say, how is that even possible that we can do it? Well, the Creator created me, and the Creator created the universe, then it's also going to make it easy for me to tap into my Creator. Let's go slower. Prayer is a way of catching up with God, the way you would catch up with close friends or your most comforting family member. So just a reminder then that God is not always an old man in the sky. In fact, almost never, although that is the picture that some people have. You can just think right now in your life, if you ever, as a little kid or even now, when you picture God, do you picture an old man in the sky? And that's okay. That can be very comforting and helpful. But if we get too stuck in that, then we start thinking that A, God is a human all the time, B, God is a male all the time, and is old. And those things aren't necessarily true. Also, ketchup, when I say prayer, not ketchup that you put on your hot dog, but when I say prayer is a way of catching up with God, that means like a way of chatting and seeing what's up, which seems like a wild thing to be able to do with the creator of all, but you can. It doesn't have to be, in the form of a letter. Dear Lord, this is Charlotte. Formal introduction of who I am. Sincerest apologies. Like when you call your friend or you call your grandma, you don't have to do all those things because they know you and they love you. So that's why I use the phrase catching up. But it can be formal if you need something more intense than just to catch up. So though God is not a human, God can connect with us in human ways. And often that's the best way of doing it, is talking to other people, having relationships with other people in the world, and seeing God in those people, or feeling God's love through the love of others. So here we have the question, how do you stay close with people in your life? And I'm asking this question because that's how we figure out how to talk to God. Well, what do I know how to do? I know how to talk to humans, so let's just start there. Okay, so the people in my life that I like, me, my friends, my family members, my grandparents, friends of my parents that are older and aren't my parents, but I like talking to, I stay close to them by talking to them often. I wonder if I can get a pointer. Can I get a pointer? What's this? Pen, highlighter, eraser. No, none of these. I hate them all. Okay, never mind. You talk to them often. You can call them on the phone. You can write letters. This is a sort of old-fashioned way of doing it, but for most of the history of written human writing, that's how we communicate with people that are far away. Even if it's just a little tiny note, write a little letter, send it on a horseback, and the horseman delivers it to the next town over, or across an ocean even. Spend time with that person to show them you care. Every time you spend time with them, even if you're not chatting about something specifically, you're becoming closer, right? And you're learning what they like, and they're learning what you like, and you're developing a friendship. And the last one, tell them when you need help and support. So once you've developed a sense of trust with your family members or your friends, then maybe you start doing favors for each other. And you don't do it because you ask for something, you want something in return. You do it because you care about that person. Or you ask them to help you. And by asking them to help you, you're saying, I choose you because I trust you to be a part of this hard thing in my life. It could be something small, like please pick up my baby sister from daycare. Or it could be, I really need a friend to talk to. And that really keeps the relationship strong. And if you don't do these things, what happens to that friendship or relationship? If you don't talk to them or call them or write letters, say you have a best friend, but they live in New York. You don't call them and you don't talk to them, you don't write letters, you don't spend time with them, you don't rely on them for help, what's going to happen to that friendship? It might fade away. Wouldn't be anyone's fault, but no one did anything to make the friendship grow. So this is not true about God. God is always available to us, but what is true is that our feeling of connection with God can dissolve in that same way. If we don't reach out, if we don't ask for help, if we don't talk, God is always waiting to be chatted with, just like someone who's like sitting by the phone being like, do you want to talk? I'll talk anytime. And we're always like, no, I don't have time. It feels a little bit different with God, besides, because you can't pick up the phone necessarily and call God. You can't write a letter to God, although I'd love to try. Because God is not human, but lives in us, in humanity, we have to practice this way of communicating with God. So let me just say, like when you were little, and you were learning how to chat with adults, with people around you, you had to learn how to do that. And even then, when you could chat and say goo goo gaga and mama dada, you still didn't know how to press the buttons on the phone to call up your grandma and say goo goo gaga. Someone had to teach you how to press the buttons. Same thing with God. You have to learn how to press the buttons. What is the version of a phone call to God? So I have developed these 3 ideas of thinking about how we chat with God. Network, we're going to go through them one by one, explain what they are. Satellite, and link. And these are all ways that I think are versions of calling your friends or chatting with your friends or spending time with your friends, but with God, who is our friend. So network, let's do network first. For me, network is like creating a web. It's like creating your own personal internet of people around you who are interested in God, who talk to God on their own, who study God, who disagree about God, and all are around you talking about that. So if you don't hear about God all the time, then you tend to forget about that God exists, right? And you tend to forget that you are this amazing, wonderful, beautiful creation from a higher power. So what's nice is when people around you are also talking and thinking about God, maybe they're also saying grace or saying prayers, and then you're thinking about it more. So you can create a network by talking about God with your family, hearing what other people think about God. I put reading poetry because reading poetry or reading books sort of like make your mind sort of go like and sort of like spread out into beautiful, wonderful places. And that sort of gets you in the mind of thinking about God. Reading the Bible or other religions' views on God. So not just the Bible, but you could read parts of the Quran or the Torah or any of the texts about Buddha. And you might be that might be a way of building up your network, your internet about God. Satellite. The satellite for me means kind of like being a little magnet that attracts things about God or thoughts about God. It attracts God's love to you too, right? So doing things that make you feel love or make you understand God's love in the world. If you just sit in your room all day and you don't talk to anybody, God still loves you. And you can still reach out to God at any point, but it's really hard to see proof of it. So things you can do to be a little satellite include being of a service to your community, so a service project of any kind, soup kitchens, other schools, doing things in your community with your friends, taking care of the earth, taking care of your garden, taking care of your younger siblings or babysitting. Being of service to your friends and family. So when someone asks you to do a favor, obviously you may not want to do it, but when you do it, you're creating a bond with that person and generating love, and it's like being a little satellite for God's gratitude and love to you. And then, of course, being of service to people who are less fortunate than you. So always wondering, not just, how can I feed the homeless, but who in the room that I'm in? If you think about your classroom, who in this room is the most sad? Who in this room is not feeling loved, and how can I change that person's day or that person's week? and by doing that, wherever love is, God is also there. Can be a little magnet for that. And the third one is we have network, building up your internet of thinking about God, talking about God. Satellite, being a little magnet for God's love. And link, and this is the thing that actually happens when people think about prayer. And that is, you don't have to do anything, you don't have to talk to anyone. It is just the knowledge that God is there waiting for you. We always say to the little kids, in your heart, but that makes sense, right? Because that's where we think of our soul being inside of us. And that you can talk or be silent with God whenever you want, because there is a link there. And you just have to tune in to that link and be like, are you there? Are you listening? And you can talk with words or be silent. Either can work well depending on what you need. If you're silent to access this link between you and God, sometimes it is easier to hear what God might be saying to your heart. But if you need to talk out loud, it can be easier to express what's really happening to you. Oh, I just need to oh God, I'm so tired, and oh Lord, please protect me from things, or I'm just feeling really bummed today, and my mom said that thing that made me so angry. That's all accessing the link to God. So after those 3 ideas about how to talk to God, let's just remind ourselves that there are a lot of feelings about what the right way to pray is. I'm putting little quotes around that. But link or satellite or network, these three made up things that I have just given you about how to talk to God, are pretty open-ended. There aren't really rules surrounding it. Someone may have no idea who they are praying to, but God is still there. Someone may have never heard of God before in their life. They may not read any religious text. God is still interested, invested, and loves that person. So that means prayer has to be pretty easy. There can't be too many rules, otherwise no one would ever talk to God. So you may have no idea who you're praying to. That's okay. You may have an image very clearly of what God is. You may be like, I don't want any images. I don't want God to look like anything. Totally fine. You may have no idea what the right thing to say is. That's totally fine too. There is no right way to pray, as long as it is earnest and from the heart and about your real needs, the way you would talk to a real friend or your grandmother or your favorite teacher, really being honest and open. The only thing you have to do is really start and try. And you could do it for the rest of your life, and it'll feel different every time because there's no rules about what that relationship between you and God is. When you start to make a new friend, no one should be able to come in on the friendship and be like, okay, here's how this friendship's going to go. You are only allowed to say yes, and you are only allowed to say no, and you are only allowed to call each other on Tuesday nights. I mean, yes, there are rules surrounding becoming friends, but for the most part, it's up to you two how you want to develop it. Same goes with you and God. It's up to you two how you want this relationship to go. You don't have to wait until you understand everything to start chatting with God. So it's an extension of something I just said, right? Even the most holy people in the world, maybe some of you have heard of Mother Teresa. She's a very, very holy woman who took care of the sickest of the sick in India for years and years and years. And she's one of the most recent saints in the Catholic Church that we have. And people thought, oh, what a holy, perfect, wonderful woman. Well, people found her diaries, and guess what? She felt lost and unconnected to God all the time, which I think is sort of wonderful because it means that this wonderful woman, Mother Teresa, is writing in her diary, I feel so lost. Where is God? I can't feel God. And kept doing good, wonderful things on the earth, which means that Mother Teresa is like me, and I'm like Mother Teresa, that sometimes I feel lost and not connected to God at all. But I keep praying and I keep trying to be a satellite for God's love. However, I like having holy feelings, which is why I go to church, because the magic of church and the beauty of it and being near my friends and saying the prayers really helps me feel closer to God more quickly. But if you're at home and you're not going to church, or if you need to pray some other time when you're not in church, there are things you can do to help your body and your mind and your soul feel God's presence more easily. These are just some of the things. You can light a candle. I almost always light a candle if I really need to pray for real. I mean, I can just be praying like while I'm cooking or singing or driving. If I really have something I really want to talk to God about, I light a candle. It just makes me calm, and you can look at the flame, and it's helpful. You can listen to music you love. Lie in your bed, put your headphones on, listen to 45 minutes of music. Great way to talk to God. More of a listening exercise, right? Going into nature. That's a great one also, right? Because then you're looking, you are the created one. God has created you. And then you're out in the world of all the other things that God created, and you're seeing how God's love is in this grasshopper or this dandelion and in you. Singing. If you like to sing, you know there is, and there's that feeling you have when you're singing in a group or by yourself or really hitting that high note, you know there is almost no other way of feeling that God is near you. Someone once said that singing is praying twice. Singing is a great way to pray. It makes that holy feeling come into you. And if you're not a singer, but you like feeling holiness in your body, dancing is an amazing way to feel holy and close to God, even if you're just dancing in your living room. And that often involves really good music, so two go together. And you may be like, dancing isn't praying. Well, I'm here to tell you, prayer is a wider spectrum of things than you thought. Dance can totally be prayer. What do I talk to God about? When I want to talk to God, when I want to pray, what am I saying? Maybe I don't have anything to say. Pretty much whatever you say is going to fall into 3 categories. Help, please help me, I'm in trouble. Thanks, thank you so much, this day was beautiful. Thank you for my puppy. And wow, oh my gosh, I'm in awe. Maybe there's no help or thanks in it. Wow is just like, blah, this mountain is gorgeous. Or I love my mom. Or this cake is incredible. Wow is just like that feeling of like, it's like gratitude plus 2.0. But sometimes, so help, thanks, wow, if you're just starting to pray and you're like, I want to chat with God, but I don't know where to start, just start there. Help, thanks, wow. You could do one of each. You could do one big one. Sometimes it's all 3 of them. Sometimes it's none of them because you're going through something really rough or really complicated, or you're feeling everything at once. And it's kind of a help, thanks, wow, all at once. And this is when I would say sometimes words aren't helpful, which is good because God doesn't need words. And that is when you start to pray and you don't actually know what you want to say, but you know you want to say or hear something, that's maybe when you don't need to use words and you start to just be silent and listen. Maybe that's when you listen to music or you light a candle and you're just quiet. And then you hear what God wants to say to you, or you can put everything all in writing at once. Because sometimes your heart says things better than your mouth. So you start with whatever comes to your heart first. Are you feeling help, thanks, wow, or all of the above? Then there's 3 different parts to what prayer can do, or what prayer can be. Once you have your feeling of like, oh, help, thanks, wow, all of the above, you can do something with your body. Now the body, I want you to be able to see, I hope you can see her. This is a woman touching, these are called, it's called a prayer wall, but these cylinders have a name too, and they use them in Tibet, in the Buddhist religion, and it's specifically the Tibetan Buddhist religion, and you touch those cylinders as you walk by and they spin, and it's a form of prayer, believe it or not. And you can see there's writing on each of those cylinders. Or you can do the very traditional classic way of praying, which is to sit down and use your hands here or here. You can see this Buddhist monk in the middle is doing that, but also what appears to be Christians in the far left corner of your screen have their hands together. Why do we do that? Well, it kind of feels like a thank you or a please, right? Thank you so much. Please help me. And putting our body in that mode allows us to sink into what we need right away. In Islam and many other traditional religions, you have to get all the way on the ground and use your hand and you bow and you touch the earth. And if you have never tried to pray that way, I highly, what's the word? I think it's a good idea. You should try it. There's something about going full on the ground and kissing the earth or putting your head in the earth or closing your eyes in that position. It's very calming. And it's very easy to go inward and listen. So I like that kind of prayer. I like using my body. Or as you can see, these younger boys in the far right corner are lighting candles and putting them in the sand, which is something you may have seen we do at church sometimes when you light a candle for a specific prayer or a specific person. So these are all things you can do with your body, and maybe you'll do the same thing every time. Maybe it feels good to always kneel or always stand or always put your hands up or always put your hands down or cross them or light something or dance. Or maybe you shake it up every day, right? You're like, today the prayer needs to be wild. Today the prayer needs to be quiet. Choose your own adventure. After the body, you want to think about your words. So the words can be literal, as we said. You can actually say, God, here I am. I'm in trouble. Help me out. Or they can be internal. And you may be like, what words am I going to say? You know, if you want to speak words that same, you can say the same words every time. Like in church, we say some of the same prayers every time because the tradition of putting it in your mouth is really helpful and can get you into that space immediately. Or you can pick another kind of prayer that you really like that says everything you want to say. Sometimes we're too tired to pick a prayer, or we don't know what we need. We just want to say a prayer. And that's why sometimes we have the Lord's Prayer, which is the one in church where it says, Our Father who art in heaven. Or you can pick a different one. So right now we're looking at this wonderful picture of Teresa of Avila, who is a saint and a mystic. And she lived in the mid-1500s. When it says she was a Carmelite nun, that means she was a type of Catholic nun. And nuns spend their whole lives just doing good works and writing and thinking and singing and living together. But she was also an incredible writer and a theologian, which just means she wrote about God and what she thought God was like. And she loved to party, and she loved to eat, and she loved being in houses and visiting. She was a genius. And she wrote this wonderful, this is a slightly more spooky photo of Teresa of Avila, but I kind of love it because she looks very glamorous. And she wrote this prayer, or at least we think she did, because they found it when she died on her bookmark that was in her Bible. So here is the prayer that she wrote. Let nothing disturb you. Let nothing upset you. Everything changes. God alone is unchanging. With patience, all things are possible. Whoever has God lacks nothing. God alone is enough. So what I like about this is that even though she's a writer and a thinker and a theologian, she hasn't written anything fancy. She's just written the things that she thinks she needs to remember. And they're kind of things that I want to remember too. Everything changes. God alone is unchanging. Wow, that would help me get to sleep better at night if I did that every night. So you could use Teresa's bookmark as a nighttime prayer if you wanted. You could write it on your own bookmark, or you can write your own, is the point of this. And then you just have whatever you need, at a glance. Oh, I need a prayer. I need a quick little prayer. Pick up your bookmark. It's ready to go. So to close out, we have body, we have words, and then we have listening. And these are the three parts of, I think, any prayer practice. And so we're just going to take a minute. You can close your eyes. I'm not actually going to set a timer for 4 minutes, but as you can see, if you were to do this on your own, maybe you'd set a timer for 4 minutes on your phone or a kitchen timer. But for now, I just want you to close your eyes. I'm going to try something. And just listen to my voice, and I'll tell you what to do. Get comfy. And just relax. Keep your eyes closed. You're not missing anything. And relax your face, and your mouth, and your eyeballs. And just breathe in and out in your own time. In and out. Keep going. And when you breathe out, really let your whole body just sort of float down. Your bones relax. Your skin. And now as you're breathing, maybe you would want to do this for much longer if you were on your own, just to really settle. But with me right now, imagine your heart inside your body. Picture it. And keep breathing. Nice and slow. And imagine that when you breathe in, you're breathing in a calm, cool color you like. Breathing that color in through your nostrils, and it falls down your throat into your heart. Every time you breathe in that color. and it sits on your heart. And your heart begins to glow that color that you love. Okay, you can open your eyes now. Hello, welcome back. So it's short, right? There was only like a minute and a half, but we took time to breathe and relax, and then we had one image, which was our heart and a color. You could also imagine a sound or a picture or a place that you go that makes you feel safe. I have in my mind a little mountain town with a beautiful field and soft grass and no bugs crawling on me, and a lake and the sun is setting. That's my calm place, and I go there in my mind. Or I picture my heart glowing, or I picture my heart bathed in color or light. And all of these ways are ways that I can stop thinking so much, stop talking so much, and listen for what God has to say to me. Because sometimes I can't hear God unless I'm quiet for a minute, because my brain gets in the way. When you do this practice, ask yourself, what does it feel like to truly say nothing? It's really hard for our brains to turn off. But that is the space where you can feel loved and know that God is near you. In this space, in this quiet space, is where God is waiting for us all the time. Just like sitting by the phone being like, when is Charlotte going to call? When is Eli going to call? Just waiting to hear. It's a way of picking up the phone. So your homework, if you want to, is to find a way to pray this week on your own, not in church. And you can remember you can choose something to do with your body, you can choose words, and you find a way to listen. You can dance, you can sing, you can journal, or you can just be quiet and light a candle. And let us know how it goes. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Love you guys very much and miss you, and hopefully if you're watching this recording, some of us will get together next week. And if not, stay safe, and we'll see you later. Bye.